Welcome, everybody, to the LIPSEY'S Aim Higher podcast. Across from me, Jason Klossner and Dale Luke. I'm Rob Aberzino, and we're back.
What's up,
We
Rob?
are back.
Today, we're going to talk about something kind of new, fun, and trending.
Yes, definitely.
From what I understand here. So, before we get to that, anything fun? I know we're getting into the heat of summer.
The sweating season.
The sweating season. So the range time, the woods time gets kind of cut down a little bit. But anything good to report?
You know, we had some very successful hunting seasons.
Yeah, we did.
Or season.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say seasons.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to hear it, but Creedmoors came through.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, lots of dead animals as a result of the 6.5 Creedmoor.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, and I can honestly say they were all one-shot drops.
Did you guys go turkey hunting?
We did not.
You
I did.
You
Yeah, I
were in
went
Texas?
turkey.
I did.
Yeah, in Texas. Yeah, got one. Got a good one, man. It was
There you
nice.
go.
Yeah, it was
There
fun.
you go. You did not go?
I did not.
I
no.
did not either.
No.
And now we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's summer.
Yeah, you
Now-
don't want to be in the woods right now down
No,
here.
Now it's
absolutely
fishing
not.
season.
Well, today we want to talk field auto pistols. So it's a topic that Jason kind of came up with, and not a topic, but really something he's been getting more questions about, and we started kicking it around a little bit. Something I'm not terribly familiar with, as far not the firearms themselves, but I guess the trend.
Oh, it's definitely a big trend.
Yeah,
well,
we wanted to kick it around a little bit today.
more people. I think one of the biggest things that came out of this whole COVID thing was that more people were spending time out in the outdoors. A lot of people that weren't traditionally hunting, maybe didn't spend a lot of time thinking about going in the backcountry, but that's just a big trend right now. And even the people who were into the outdoors before, going deeper into the backcountry is a big hot trend in the hunting world. And when you do that, when you're kind of going in miles on foot and hauling all your stuff in, you start counting a lot of ounces. And
Is this just the sense of adventure people have?
I think so. Yeah. The opportunities are, hunting is getting to be a lot more popular in the last 2 years, which is great, but it also makes the access a little bit more limited because, the stuff that's easy to get to, there's just more competition. So so the guys who want to be really hardcore, they got to go deaper and deeper into the woods. And
It's like the fished out fishing holes.
yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of places where you can't take mechanical, motorized vehicles into. You have to go in by foot,
Right.
or horseback, and so weight's a big concern. Another thing too is you've got a new whole generation of outdoorsmen now that are younger and are only experiences with auto pistols. And they've been shooting Glocks and SIGs and Smith & Wessons, and so they don't have any experience with revolvers, and so they want to use those guns for when they're in the woods.
That was my first reaction, I guess, when we started kicking around the topic of it's what younger people I think are just used to.
Yep.
Are the semi-autos.
Right. And a common question is, can you carry your everyday carry in the woods? Backpacking in a hunting scenario, would you want that small of a gun? I guess you can still conceal, Glock 17 size weapons, but what's the right load to carry? In those situations.
Yeah, we've got, and we'll get into all that.
Yeah, it kind of all spurned from. We had a question from a listener, Joey. He was from Arizona, and he said, "Hey, I'm new to hunting, and I want to go spend more time in the backcountry this spring and summer." He goes, "Currently, I just have my carry pistol," which he didn't say in this email, but in a follow-up, he mentioned he had a Glock 19.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, is that good for being out in the woods in the backcountry, or should I get something else? What's your advice? And we went back and forth on some different things, and quite honestly, that Glock 19 is pretty usable.
Yeah.
With the right ammunition.
Right.
And so that sometimes can turn a carry gun into something that is applicable. Now, a lot depends on your environment too. If you live in where there's big bears or mountain lions versus somewhere where the biggest thing in the woods is varmints and stuff.
Right.
That can dictate what you're doing.
Absolutely. And that's a good question. Go ahead, Dale, if you want to add to that.
Well, no, I was just going to say, dealing with, Glock 19, I've carried Glock 19 in the woods, just doing work weekends. It's super lightweight. But Jason and I actually had a conversation this morning about, penetration. You're going to want the right load to truly penetrate whatever you're shooting at, especially in the outdoors.
Right. And you said bear, and that's another thing I thought of when we had this conversation.
Bear guns, that's the most heated thing in the world.
Traditionally, and you and I talked about it for a minute.
Right.
I'm like, is there a semi-auto option that is viable, in that,
Sure.
Scenario,
Right.
when you're talking about, big, scary, dangerous animals?
Well, there's two prevailing thought processes when it comes to bears. And that's there's probably more trees have been cut down to make paper to write magazine articles about what's the best bear gun out there.
Right.
More internet forum topics about bear guns.
Yeah.
Mostly about people who don't live within 800 miles of a bear,
Right.
but they like to talk about it.
Yeah.
And the two trending theories are, you want to hit them with the biggest thing you could put in them. A 454, a Smith 500.
Right.
A 44 Magnum would be considered on the light end for that crew. And hey, more is always better.
Right.
However, a lot of guys can't handle that kind of power. Either they don't shoot it that much, they can't shoot it well. So
plus you are back to size and weight a little bit,
and it's a heavy gun. You get into and so to make them shootable, you got to make them heavier, which in turn makes them less apt to want to carry them. You might leave them back in a tent when you would have it on all the time, that kind of stuff. So yes, that's that one school of thought. The other school of thought is that, well, probably the only thing that's going to stop an enraged bear or any type of predatory animal is a central nervous system hit.
Is your blood sacrifice?
Yeah, right. So did you're going to will it penetrate the skull of a bear? Will it reach the spine? Whatever that. So if a 357 Magnum or a 10 millimeter or a 22 Magnum will penetrate the skull of a bear, then I would rather have 15 to 20 of those shots versus 5 or 6 rounds of a 44 Magnum that I can't hit anything with.
Right.
So you have those two arenas there of thought. Where is the best? Probably somewhere in the middle as usual.
Yeah.
But I will say this: when it comes to power per weight, it kind of leans towards the auto pistol side.
Right.
Honestly, I think.
Right.
But yeah, you can get a little bit more power in a auto pistol, but you're really tapping out at, say, a 10 millimeter or a heavy loaded 45 auto, 45 super, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the two trends. So for a lot of people who are just getting into it, who are already, maybe they go shoot their Glocks or their SIGs or whatever else, they're really tuned up on their 9 millimeter pistol. To make the transition to maybe a 10 millimeter is not that big of a deal because they already have the manual of arms. They're comfortable shooting it. The recoil on 10 millimeter is still not that bad.
Right.
Most people with a little training and a little practice can handle that pretty well.
Yeah.
So I think that's why you're seeing such an uptick. I know we see it in our sales, Dale, of 10 millimeter pistols. They're hotter than they've ever been right now.
Well, they're starting to slim the guns down a good bit. For a while, the only real popular 10 out there after the Bren 10 went away was the Glock 20. That kind of raised the bar for 10 millimeters, and it was built on a large 45 frame. One for capacity and two for the pressures. And on the, with the 10s now, they're starting to scale down on the grip size themselves. So someone with a smaller palm, smaller hands, can actually control the gun and not have it feel like it's fixing to fly out because they don't have a good grip.
Yeah, Glock 20 is a pretty big gun. It's manageable, but it's pretty in its original state is pretty large.
Right.
Some of the newer models that are coming out are a little more trim, a little easier to handle.
What do you say are some features of a good, auto gun for the field? What do you think?
So personally,
yeah, we talked about this a good bit.
I tend to favor guns that are either traditional double action, single action, like the HK USP. That's one of my favorites. Or something that's a striker fired gun, Glock 20, one of the new Smith M&P 10s, stuff like that. I like guns, 1911s. I love 1911s. I'm not super crazy about the fact that to carry them effectively, the hammer's back, safety on, cocked and locked.
Well, you're giving up a little round count there too.
You're giving up a little bit of round count, but not so much of that. It's kind of an access way for gunk and stuff to get into the gun.
Yeah, we've seen it with revolvers where a briar has gotten behind the hammer and has really locked the gun
You can lock
up.
stuff. You're crawling through brush. You're bushwhacking through things and stuff like that. It tends to get a little dirty, and things can get haywire in there. So when I do carry a 1911, which I have one of the Gun Talk 10 millimeter Commanders, great gun. That gun shoots fantastic. Probably the best shooting 10 millimeter I own. But generally, when I do carry it out in the woods, I make sure I have it concealed. have a cover guard over
Right.
it, just to kind of keep debris and dirt and grime. You know, you're riding 4-wheelers or side by UTVs out in these dirt roads that are real dusty, and man, I've done it where you look down and it's like the back of your gun looks flat, dark earth, but it's not. It's just dirt. It's
any kind of exposed oil.
Yeah. So I tend to favor a little lower maintenance guns,
Right.
The polymer guns. Plus, you get the benefit of the weight reduction.
Yeah.
You know, a steel frame 1911 and 10 millimeter, you're looking at about 40 ounces
Right.
unloaded, whereas a Glock 20 is about 30 ounces. So right off the bat, you're saving 10 ounces.
And the 480 is what, 48 ounces?
Actually, I wrote it down.
How close am I? Without going over.
A 6.5 inch 454 Casull Bisley is 50 ounces.
Okay.
So
I didn't go over.
Yeah, you're over almost a pound and a half.
Yeah.
Heavier than a Glock.
Yeah.
So,
but not much heavier than a 1911.
10 ounces.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Now you take a Smith X frame, even the 4-inch gun is 56 ounces.
Wow.
So it's a full pound heavier than a 1911.
Yeah.
So.
What do you think? Features, and I'm sure some similar, but
other
things you like.
I'm a striker fire guy.
Yeah.
Definitely. Besides our big bore revolvers, our single actions and stuff that Jason and I like to shoot, but I'm a striker fire guy. I've been so invested in Glocks over the years. Carrot in the woods this past year, I carried my Glock 20. Changed the sights on it so that they're more of a target sight than a battle sight. It shoots really, really good, running some of the SIG ammo through it, and it's a workhorse.
That's a good
I
segue
really
into ammo. We talk calibers a little bit, so 10 millimeter would be is kind of your preferred. You would say.
Well,
I like the capacity of the 20.
The 10 millimeter,
15 rounds of 10 is
generally your double stack 10 millimeters gonna be 15 plus 1. 10 millimeters obviously definitely the trending cartridge up. I will say this: 10 millimeters a little. You have to really dedicate and really vet your gun in 10 millimeter, especially with the super heavy field appropriate loads. So there's a lot of stuff out there that are in the 200 to 220 grain hard cast type bullets that are running 1150 to 1250 feet per second.
Right.
And those are very effective loads. I mean, that's the kind of load that you really want. They penetrate like crazy. However, a lot of times they can be a little finicky in the guns.
How so?
Well,
with the flat nose on the rounds,
they're wide, and so when you have a double stack magazine, sometimes they can get kind of hung up in there. But the biggest issue I found personally is that when you load 15 rounds in a magazine like that, that's a lot of weight on the magazine spring, especially going with a super heavy load.
Right.
So what happens, and then when you factor in the super high velocity, sometimes what happens is that magazine cannot lift that round fast enough to catch the next one out because the slide's working so fast. So you get these failure to feed type malfunctions.
Not ideal.
Not ideal when you're
not in a
bear charge, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of unfortunately, 10 millimeter ammo is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Especially the good stuff. So a lot of people they'll shoot 4 or 5 rounds, call it good, and then load the rest of their magazines and say they're good. And you really want to vet it out. That's the only thing I can recommend to all the guys out there that are buying 10 millimeters. You really want to make sure that your gun and your ammo is jiving together. There's ways to tune them, but if you're kind of I just want to plug and play kind of thing, 10 millimeter might not be your best choice. Now you can do is you can step down a little bit. I have found that the 200 grain stuff that's running at about 1,050 to 1,150 tends to run pretty good. I haven't had a lot of issues with that. So sometimes I'll give up a little bit of performance for an added increase in reliability.
Yeah.
So there's always a trade-off there, and that load's still going to penetrate really, really well. I mean, we're still talking about a round that's got really pretty good high sectional density, and that velocity window tends to work pretty well. Now, you're using solid bullets. You're using hard cast, full metal jacket, flat points, that kind of stuff. Hollow points on thinner skin, smaller, potentially dangerous stuff, big cat, mountain lion, stuff like that, they'll be fine.
Right.
But when we're talking about the bear stuff or big hogs, like in an area down in the south,
right,
you really want a solid bullet to reach the vitals.
What about the forgotten 40 cal?
So 40 caliber is kind of the same, basically same.
That's actually what I have. I've got, and that's the one I take in the woods. I've got a SIG 226. 40 cal.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of guys who carry 40 calibers because they mess around with 10 millimeter, and then by the time they get it to work in their guns, the ballistics aren't that far off from 40,
Right.
and they're like, well, heck, I'll just use my 40.
Right.
I tell you what, I've kind of gone back to 45.
Okay.
Again, it's kind of platform dependent, but I have really, really fell in love with my HK USP. That gun is a tank. I mean, I don't know of a probably more durable, bomb-proof auto pistol than the HK USP 45.
And it's accurate. You can actually hit what you're aiming
It
at.
is crazy accurate.
Yeah.
13 round capacity, only weighs about 30 ounces, or I think it's 27 ounces. It's light, unloaded.
I got to shoot. I don't think I've ever shot one of those before.
I'll bring it next time we go
shot
out.
several HKs. I don't think I've shot.
It's nice.
I really like
It
it.
is a smooth shooting gun, even with some of his hot stuff.
Yeah.
It's actually really smooth.
So I'm currently loading a 230 grain flat point hard cast bullet that's powder coated to basically 1,000 feet per second. And it's funny, our old shooting buddy Greg Ferries and I, we were talking about this, and we got to talking about how, down here, really the perfect 44 special 45 Colt loads about a 250 at around 1,000 feet per second. And then we got to playing around with these 45 loads out at his range, and I'm like, Greg, we just did the same thing with a 13-shot auto pistol that's easier to shoot, quicker to reload.
Right.
I got night sights on it. I could put a flashlight on it if I needed to. It's lighter.
Reloading, by the way.
Reloading is much quicker.
Yeah.
Huge benefit.
And it's twice the capacity right out the box.
Yeah.
I mean, we're both kind of looking at ourselves, well, man, that might be the answer. Yeah, does it have the soul of a flat top 44 special? No, it does not.
Yeah.
But from a whole practicality standpoint, that gun's got a lot going for it. And I tell you what, the USPs will handle 45 Super loads, which if you're not familiar with 45 Super, same case dimensions and size as a 45 ACP, but loaded to a lot more pressure. It uses a little bit reinforced brass. There are some companies like Underwood and Buffalo Bore and a few of those others that load 45 Super. The HK USP will run it all day long.
Yeah.
That now you're getting about a 230 grain bullet at around 1,100 feet per second, or a 250 at about 1,000 out of an auto pistol.
That's stout.
It's stout. But you know what? The recoil is not bad. Very easy to do. That load that I worked up, that 230 to 1,000, is with power pistol powder, and it's running at standard pressure. It's not running at plus P.
Yeah.
It's a really great load. And I tell you what, the beautiful thing is that I can load it up with 230 grain regular 45 ammo, and it shoots at the same sights, and I can practice relatively inexpensive compared to some of the other calibers out there. The gun's got a lot going for it. It's a double action, single action, traditional double action, which I kind of like in a field pistol. There's times like you're tracking maybe a wounded deer or something like that. The pistol's out, but you're walking. You're trying to manipulate some hogs or something. You're trying to shoot them, and you're having to move in some uneven terrain and stuff. I like having that little bit longer trigger pull for that first shot.
Yeah.
The fingers out the trigger and all that stuff. But when you're in the woods, there's all kind of stuff that can
snag on
It can snag on things. So I like the idea of, I put my thumb on the back of that hammer while I'm working through stuff. That trigger can't go back.
Right.
Because I'm pushing that hammer forward.
Right.
Striker gun can't do that.
Right. Yeah.
So I really like that style of gun for that application.
So we go 10 millimeter, 45, 40. Do we go down to 9?
You can definitely go down to 9 millimeter.
I mean, I know with the hot ammo these days, and the progression that ammo has made over the years, especially the more recent years. There's not much a 9 can't do.
Jason's watched me dump about $30 worth of Spear Gold Dot out of a Glock 19 at an armadillo.
Yeah.
Real dangerous animal there.
Yeah, it was charging.
But, well, in seriousness though, a 147 hard cast bullet out of a 9 millimeter will penetrate like crazy.
Yeah.
Now it's a pencil hole.
Yeah.
Do something, but if you're in that camp that believes that the only thing that really matters is can you break through a skull, or reach a spinal cord, something like that, 9 millimeter is not a bad choice.
Yeah.
Friend of mine,
and at 15 or 17 rounds, you've got a lot of opportunities.
A lot of opportunities.
absolutely.
You can shoot it fast.
Yeah.
For guys who who need a dot to see their sights.
Yeah.
Putting a dot on a revolver is not super easy.
Yeah.
Phil Shoemaker, world-renowned Alaskan bear guide, he killed a bear that was attacking a fishing client he had. He had a Smith & Wesson 3953, one of their older single stack 9mm, loaded with buffalo bore 147 hard cast, and killed the bear with it. Big grizzly, big brown bear, and again, it's a lot of times it's the Indian, not the arrow.
Yeah,
at that point.
Yeah.
But because Phil has done it all when it comes to bears, but it worked.
Yeah.
It worked just fine. And I don't know if he would have done any better with a 10mm or a 454. I remember I talked to Phil a long time ago, and I asked him at the time what he was carrying, and this was probably 15 years ago, and he was carrying a Smith & Wesson 629 mountain gun. Mm-hmm. But his loads were not super heavy. I want to say they were like a 260 at around 1,300 feet per second. He said, because I can hit something with it. Mm-hmm. Anything heavier, I'm not comfortable. And his daughter Tia was carrying a Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum with 180 grain full metal jackets in it. Yeah. And they served her well. Yeah. And these are people that are around big bears all the time.
Right.
And that's kind of stuff they're carrying. Not a 500 Smith & Wesson, not a 454, and those kind of things.
Yeah. People look at us.
Not everybody can handle those.
No.
Right. People look at us and be like, how do you handle all the spiders and snakes and alligators that you have in Louisiana? I couldn't do bears. I'm good. I couldn't.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's different. Well, and I'll tell you one other advantage.
It's kind of a tough choice if you put them all on a wheel and spun it. I don't know, where you come up.
Well, it's what you're used to. I'm used to the stuff down here, but I couldn't imagine something that's over 13 feet tall, 12 foot tall, standing up looking at me.
They can run like
40
miles an hour.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and to Dale's point, another reason why I really like the 45 or the 9mm and even 40 is that CCI makes snake loads for those rounds.
Yeah,
they don't make them for 10. They don't make them for 10
like
millimeter.
the pellets.
Yeah.
It's a small shot shell. I
Yeah.
think it's
Now a lot
12.
of times, usually they're loaded with number 12. A lot of times they won't function in auto. But really, one's all you really need, anyways.
Yeah.
And at that point,
get them off your boot.
Yeah, I mean, you're usually shooting them at fairly close range. If they're far enough where I can walk away from them, I usually walk away from them.
Right.
But if they're close enough where I need to shoot them, one shot's usually going to work. But a 10mm doesn't have snake loads for whatever reason. And the CCI, if you're listening, please load some 10mm snake loads. Yeah. We could use them for sure.
What do you think about, Dale? Carry when you what do you use holster wise, or how do you carry when you are out in the wilderness?
Now that's it depends on the gun, of course.
Yeah.
But
and the environment.
Not only that, but when you're hunting, it's different than a work weekend carrying a field pistol, and then if you decide to carry that pistol during hunting season. I've marred up more wooden stocks from slinging over my right shoulder because I'm right-handed. Stock comes back and hits a hammer spur or adjustable sights or something and just scratches it all up. Outside the waistband holster, leather, something comfortable, because you're going to be wearing this most of the day.
Yeah.
For my 10 mil, I prefer a paddle, because some of the chairs that we sit in our deer stand, it kind of hugs you around your love handles, and having a big Glock 20 on your side, kind of gets in the way. So, I will take it off and at least clip it onto either side of the chair or stick it on top of my backpack where I still have easy access to it if I need it.
Yeah.
But a chest rig.
Yeah.
Simply Rugged makes a lot of auto holsters that have chest rigs.
That seems to make a lot of sense to me, especially if you were going to be in tight spaces. Thick woods, thick brush, where that gun is really on your body, on your torso, as opposed to dangling off your side, just for safety reasons. And
the only time a chest rig does not work for me is when I'm carrying a bino harness.
Yes,
and then it's just too much going on.
Yeah,
and they've got some bino harnesses that have a compartment for a handgun too, but man, I tell you what, it gets to be a lot of weight up there. Doesn't really work for me.
Yeah.
I'm generally.
I was going to say, how do you prefer to carry?
A lot of times, I will carry cross draw, somewhere a little, probably like 11 o'clock on my waist. If you're looking at it as a clock.
Yeah.
A couple reasons. One, when I sit down, the gun's sitting right there, and it's easy for me to make a real easy range of motion to get it. If I got a backpack on, the shoulder straps aren't really messing with it.
Right.
It's not banging up the stock on my gun.
Right.
There's been times when I've been sitting there and it started raining, unzip my coat and put it, kind of around the gun, and so that way it just kind of keeps it from getting rained on and everything else. Cross draw works really, really well for me. A strong side holster when I'm not carrying a rifle, or maybe just in the woods, like you said, just scouting out or doing whatever.
Yeah.
I love Rob Leahy's Simply Rugged's sourdough pancake holsters. They carry a big gun, probably more comfortably than any other holster I've used. They distribute their weight really well, but if you have a really good belt, it can make a heavier gun not feel so heavy.
And that's the key, when it comes down to equipment, especially with holsters and whatnot, it starts at the base and works its way out.
Yeah.
And if you can start with a really sturdy gun belt, that will carry the weight a whole lot better than something that you find at Walmart.
Oh, definitely. The belt's the most important thing.
How about any accessories? I throw a light. I have a Crimson Trace light I throw on my SIG when I go out, because typically you're moving early in the dark or late in the afternoon, and I'll just put a light on just for that reason. I normally don't keep it on there, but
one of the advantages of an auto pistol in the field is the ability to put a light on it, to put a red dot, those kind of things. It makes it just gives a lot of versatility. Again, like we were talking about, a lot of times you're tracking a wounded animal after hours. It's dark. Being able to have that light, and
a revolver, you're just going flashlight and revolver.
You got two hands if you're trying to. Whereas you can do, because I'm telling, just from experience, we've done this a lot over the years. You're moving brush away. You're trying. A wounded animal gets in the most thickest junk you can usually find.
Right.
So we're questioning what kind of shooter Jason is, since he's a.
I'm usually tracking his stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But so we
need Faru in here.
Yeah. So it's never square range type environments where you're squared up and you're making your shot. And I know it's always a zoo, it seems like. And
you're pushing brush out of the way with flashlight hand. That leaves you nothing to see sights with.
If you got a head, I usually a headlamp.
True.
But at the same time,
you could have a machete in this hand, kind of cutting through briars with pistol in the other.
But generally, my headlamps are not super bright, because I'm using them to walk into the woods and out without causing a lot of attention, whereas my weapon light is pretty bright.
Not a lighthouse.
So it's just something, again, if you're sleeping in a tent in bear country, to be able to grab that pistol and have a light already on it is a nice thing to do.
Yeah, it is.
And where we are, we don't live but an hour from where we hunt. So there's times when with an auto pistol, I pop the mag of hard cast bullets out, rack that one out, and then slap my 230 grain jacket hollow points in there, and I'm ready for the street. So it's just really versatile. You can use that one gun. So for the guys out there that own an auto pistol and want to start spending more time hiking and doing that stuff, I think you're not too far behind A-ball. I don't think you have to go run out and go buy a large frame revolver. I encourage you to do it because it's fun and you need to learn how to shoot them. But but don't feel like you're unarmed by reading the internet commandos and say you have to have at least a 44 Magnum or you'll get eaten by every bear behind every tree. It's just not going to happen.
Right. And the great thing with the flashlight, it's removable. So you don't have to get a special holster unless you're really.
I do have this the holster that I use. I don't love, but when you put that light on there, there's no real natural holster that holds that gun with the light. So it's kind of this Velcro.
The holster makers, I'm telling you, it's
a Velcro monster. Now it works, but it's like carrying
the holster makers have to cringe with all the different light combinations and everything.
It's impossible to
it's
fit
tough.
them all.
I've got a holster for my Glock 20 that it was made. It's a Kydex holster that's made for the Surefire light that I put on it. So and it is nice because look, again, you have all that set up. It's nice to be able to say, I can just holster the gun without, let me take my light off and then let me put it in this pocket and let me put it all sounds good on the square range, but when you're out there and you're in the middle of a jackpot with a wounded wild pig and you got dogs running all over the place, you don't want to have to be thinking about all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a dedicated rig for that is not a bad thing. It's not bad at all.
Yeah, that's what I have. It's a little unwieldy, but I get by with it, and I'd rather have it with the light ready to go than otherwise. So, final thoughts, Dale? What do you think?
When it comes down to field pistols, sights, bullets, and gear is basically what it comes down to be successful in carrying these large pistols in the woods.
And I think, Jason, what I hear from you is a simple or a fairly simple modification to what you may already own, especially if you're on a budget or you're just not in the market for a new gun right now. You can probably take possibly what you have and switch up the rounds and switch up a couple things, holster and so forth.
We know this is trending up because I always look at what are the ammo companies doing. You're seeing more 10mm ammo being offered. And you're also seeing more hard cast, deep penetrating loads, not only in 10mm, but in 9mm, 40 S&W, 45 ACP, 38 special, 3%, and all these cartridges that are not your traditional bear gun, woods defense type cartridges. So there is definitely an interest in all that. Companies like Federal aren't offering these new loads if there weren't people asking for them.
Right.
So take advantage of that. But biggest piece of advice I can give, if you do decide to take your Glock 19, your Glock 21, your SIG 320, your HK USP, vet that ammo in it before you decide to, just like you would your defensive ammo.
Right.
Everybody says, shoot 200 rounds through it to make sure it runs and everything, and that's good advice.
Yeah.
Do the same for your defensive ammo. And if you can't find a heavy hard cast load, use a full metal jacket. Now, I would generally go for a flat point. They tend to penetrate straight, whereas a round nose full metal jacket will tend to do all kind of weird things.
Right.
I've seen them skid off of skulls on a hog before. A 230 full metal jacket. Generally, a flat point or a hard cast type bullet that's a truncated cone will not do that. It'll penetrate straight. So look for that. Vet it in your guns. Don't worry about it having to be the absolute hottest ammo in the world. It doesn't have to be a nuclear load to work.
Just make sure you can shoot it well.
Make sure it runs in your gun first. B, then practice with it. And you will get a lot further down the road with an easier shooting auto pistol than you will with a huge revolver if you're not used to shooting big bore revolvers.
Right.
If you've been shooting big bore revolvers for the last 30 years, heck yeah, man. Take that Smith 629 out there or that Ruger Bisley and carry it.
Right.
But don't feel like you have to have that to be in the woods.
Yeah. Great info, guys. Great discussion. And you know where to find us on all the socials at Lipsey's Guns. Looking at the right camera this time. Facebook, Instagram, and until next time, aim higher.